On tonight's Locked On Wizards post-game show, Will Riley steals the show in the Motor City, and the Washington Wizards take down the number 1 seed Detroit Pistons. I don't think a lot of us expected this one.
You are Locked On Wizards, your daily Washington Wizards podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
DC family, you are locked on to the Washington Wizards, where you're part of our family. We thank you for making Locked On Wizards your first listen every single day. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your team free and available every single day. We are the number 1 sports podcast network in the nation. Ben Strober here with you, flying solo tonight. AB will be back with us tomorrow when we talk to Ben Standig, formerly of The Athletic, and now writes for his Substack, Last Man Standing. We'll have him on tomorrow. Look out for that episode around noon Eastern time or so. The Washington Wizards go on the road against the top seed in the Eastern Conference and get a win, 126-117 on today's show. I tell you why Will Riley is really starting to emerge for this team. He had a career high tonight. I tell you what I liked about his game, and I tell you why tanking might not be as easy as I previously had thought, I think as most of us previously had thought. And let me just start with this real quick. If you would have told me before this game that Will Riley and Sharif Cooper would combine for 38 points, the Wizards would play their bench the majority of this game, especially late in this game, and get the win, I would tell you you're crazy. But this game was a roller coaster of emotions, to say the least. It started off with Washington going up by as much as 22 in the second quarter. The Pistons somehow got the lead back in that same quarter alone. And then Washington kind of just kept Detroit at arm's length away the entire game. And I know there's going to be a lot of people that are frustrated by that result, but I'll save that for now. Let's start with Will Riley. Career high 20 points for the 19-year-old kid, rookie out of Illinois, former number 21 overall pick. 20 points for him, 6 rebounds, 5 assists, 2 steals. He was a plus 13 on a uber-efficient 9 of 14 from the field, 2 for 5 from 3. Will Riley is really starting to figure it out as a player, and I've noticed that big time with him over the past couple weeks, just in terms of his feel for the game, which I think is really important for a player like Riley, because obviously he's got the slight frame and he's going to have to put in a lot of work in the weight room this offseason in order to make significant progress to be the player that we think he can be right now, because he's a tremendous scorer of the basketball. His ability to get to his spot at his age and at his size, a guy that's now 6'10" in shoes, is extremely impressive, to say the least. And he had some struggles early on in the season. I look back to late December, early January with Will Riley, and he was struggling a little bit. And you have those nights where you go, okay, this is a guy that's 19. He just doesn't quite fit in the NBA mold right now. And that's okay. You don't fret at those moments. You know that it's going to be part of a developmental process. But in all honesty, the way he's played the last couple of nights has made me realize that maybe he's developing even a little bit faster than I had anticipated initially. Just look back at the previous results of some of the other games he played. He had 17 against New York, 18 against Sacramento. Over the last 3 games, this guy is averaging 18.5 points per game. When he's been given this opportunity, he has really made the most of it, which is a great thing to see, because when you're at this point of the season where you are tanking, you are actively playing your bench lineups for a lot of and I know they didn't succeed in the tank tonight, okay? I know. Trust me, I feel you on that. But we are going to give you the analysis every single time, and development of a player like Will Riley is extremely important. I was satisfied and excited to see that when you make this trade to get Anthony Davis, that you didn't give up any of your players that you had drafted into your organization over the last couple years or so. And Will Riley just kind of felt like a number 1 feel pick for Will Dawkins and this front office. Just a guy they felt like had some ability that they could shape him into the mold that they really expected him to be, and saw the growth as it happened over time. And this is a guy that kind of started his career similar in his freshman season, his lone season playing for Illinois. he was coming off the bench for a lot of that season, got adjusted to playing within that role, and then when the opportunity arose for him, he made the most of it. He became a starter for that Illinois team, and he really started to dominate on that level. There's a reason he was the Big Ten Sixth Man of the Year. So you have to love what Will Riley has done in terms of his development. And we've talked a lot about his playmaking ability, because that's something that's intrigued me a lot, if we're being honest. He had 5 assists against the Lakers. He had another 6 against Sacramento, just 1 against New York. But tonight, he puts together the 5 assists, 6 rebounds tonight for Riley. Because he has that ability to get to his spot with his impressive ball handling skill, you can see the playmaking and the IQ on Will Riley that is very, very impressive. Just a couple of those instances where you saw him get 2 feet in the lane, spin. I love that spin move that we see from Will Riley, and actually get his head up in time to feed somebody down low. There was one where he got it up to Anthony Gill, and I think the one play as well where he spun into the lane, then threw up a lob to Gill, which became an and one. How about Anthony Gill? 11 points tonight, 3 rebounds, and 2 assists. Man, it is really interesting that your bench in this game gave you that much production. I don't have the full box score with the bench production points up with me right here, but Washington's bench was significantly better in this game. And obviously Jalen Duren left this game for Detroit, one of the better centers, an all-star player in the Eastern Conference right now. He only played 13 minutes, and Washington was able to take advantage of that tonight. They didn't win the rebounding battle, 47-39. Detroit out-rebounds Washington. But it is interesting to see how this shaped up, and it was getting to a point in the fourth quarter of this game where I go, should they take out Will Riley and put Bub Carrington back into the game in this situation? Because Riley looks too good out there right now. And this is the situation that you find yourself in if you're Washington, because you're trying to develop your players. Everybody's out there fighting for their livelihood, trying to find out who they are as an NBA player. And a performance like this for Riley is encouraging if you're a Wizards fan, because this is a guy that you spent a first-round pick on. You want to see him find a rotational piece or find a way into the rotation for this Wizards team. And I'm glad this part of the year we're going to see some really good Will Riley hoops, to say the least. That's going to be an exciting part to it. The one thing that's not so exciting is that the Wizards take a step back in terms of their tank standings tonight. With this win, I don't think a lot of people expected a win tonight. I certainly didn't, but 126-117. And with some of the trades that happened today at the deadline, tanking might not be so easy. And that's something that might worry you a little bit if you're a Wizards fan here, because we know how important that's going to be. I'll tell you why when we come back. Hiring isn't just about finding someone willing to take the job. It's about finding the right person with the right background who can actually help your business move forward. And if you want candidates who match what you're looking for, Indeed Sponsored Jobs is the move. Because instead of hoping the right person stumbles across your post, Indeed helps you match with quality candidates by boosting your job listings to the people who fit your specific criteria, like skills, certifications, and location. If I were hiring, I wouldn't just want someone who can help. I'd want someone with real experience who can jump right in. That's what I like about Indeed. You can get specific and target exactly what you need. It saves time because you're spending less energy sorting through mismatches and with sponsored jobs. Your post gets seen by candidates who are actually a fit for you. And here's a stat that says it all. In the minute I've been talking to you, companies 27 of them have hires on Indeed. That's 27 hires in that minute, according to Indeed data worldwide. So if you're hiring, spend less time searching and more time interviewing candidates who check all your boxes with Indeed Sponsored Jobs. Listeners of the show will get a $75 sponsored job credit to help you get the job the premium status it deserves at Indeed.com/podcast. That's Indeed.com/podcast. Terms and conditions apply. Hiring? Do it the right way with Indeed. Tax season doesn't have to take over your life. This year, TurboTax is making it easier than ever just to hand things off and move on with your day. With TurboTax Full Service, you can have your taxes done for you by a trusted local expert from start to finish without the stress or guesswork. Instead of spending hours trying to figure out forms, you can meet with a local TurboTax expert in person or connect online. They handle everything from W-2s to self-employed forms and work to get you every deduction possible. You can upload your documents and go about your day and get updates right in the TurboTax app. It's a huge time saver and it gives real peace of mind knowing that an expert is handling it. For a limited time, you can have your taxes done by a local TurboTax expert for just $150 all in if a TurboTax expert didn't file for you last year. Just file by February 28th. Take taxes off your plate and get back to your life. Visit turbotax.com/local to book your appointment today. The NBA trade deadline is basically here. It's come and gone, and we want to give you a free month of our new Everydayer Club to help you get ready. If you need a group chat to help you keep up with the chaos of the tank, the Everydayer Club gets you all access to a group chat on Discord just for Wizards fans, plus national chats where you can hang out with fans from across the league. I'll be hanging out in there, so come join me. AB will be in there as well. You get ad-free versions of the show, and if you sign up by the trade deadline, then you can use code BROW to get your first month free. That link still applies through the rest of the week, so be sure to get in that code BROW. Tap the link in the show notes to learn more. All right, so the Wizards win this game against the top seed in the Eastern Conference right here, and that gets people a little bit sweaty. And I know, like, you see a really nice performance from some of these young guys today. We highlighted Will Riley throughout the entirety of this one. Justin Champagnie scored 14 points in 15 minutes tonight. I am so thrilled that Washington was able to hang on to him throughout this trade deadline process. I think he is the glue guy of this team, and there's a reason he didn't play more than 15 minutes. He is that good. He is a winning basketball player, so you can't have him out there sabotaging what your mission is. And whether or not they would say this publicly, they wouldn't say it publicly. The Wizards were not out there actively trying to win the game. You're running lineups out there late in this game where you have Anthony Gill out there. Bilal Coulibaly is somebody that we actually do need to talk about right now. He played 36 minutes tonight, and he was playing with a lot of those all-bench lineups late in the game. And he probably made the flukiest three-pointer I've ever seen that kind of iced this game. The shot clock was winding down, and he just threw up a literal prayer and banked it in. And Bilal, I've given a lot of credit to this year in a lot of different instances, but it is very interesting to me that he actually was out there, part of these all-bench lineups. And I wonder it's because of his offensive production just has not been very good. Another night where he struggles with efficiency from the field. He's 4 of 12. He goes 1 for 4 from 3, with the only 3 he made tonight being that prayer that he put up at the end of the shot clock late in this game. It's kind of crazy that the Wizards are going to find themselves in a really tight tanking race, I think, down the stretch here. And I'm going to pull up the exact numbers of where everybody stands right now. So with the win, Washington moves to 5th, which means they are not guaranteed to keep their first-round pick if the season ended today. They're 14-36. Utah is 16-35. They just made a pretty significant trade to get Jaren Jackson Jr. They also have that pick as a top 8 protected pick. So you have to imagine that Utah is in a massive race to the bottom right here. Dallas has found itself 7th right now in the Tankathon standings at 19-31. If you're a Nationals fan, you'll understand that reference, and maybe that means Dallas is going to come back and win the NBA title. I'm just kidding. That's not going to happen. They're probably going to do whatever they can to make sure they get back in the lottery because they need more lottery luck, clearly, right, everybody? All right, no, but moving on. Brooklyn, 13-37. They did literally nothing at this deadline. They didn't trade Cam Thomas. They ended up waiving him. Michael Porter Jr. is still there, I guess. So he's a guy that can score. You play Brooklyn this weekend, and that essentially becomes like a must-lose game for Washington because the last time the Wizards played the Nets literally played nobody, and Washington had maybe one of the easiest wins it's had the entire season. But all I'm trying to say here is, especially with this Indiana trade that happened today, Zubac from Los Angeles, the Clippers, he's heading to Indiana. He's going to be the center of the future for that Indiana team who hopes to find itself back in Eastern Conference contention next year when Tyrese Halliburton comes back as he's recovering from his Achilles tear right now. Indiana is going to do whatever it takes to get to the bottom because in that trade where they got Zubac, they gave up this first-round pick they have right now, except it's protected 1 through 4. So basically, this is an insanely risky move for Indiana because with that pick being protected in the top 4, Indiana could finish with the league's worst record, which means you're guaranteed to pick in the top 5. But basically, it's almost a coin flip. Even if you have the number 1 odds to land the first overall pick, or you are number 1 in the tank standings where Sacramento is right now at 12-40, as they've lost 10 games in a row, it's almost a coin flip whether or not you're going to actually fall to the worst pick you get. I think that's the biggest problem the NBA currently has within its lottery right now. But a 52.1% chance Indiana currently has of remaining in the top 4. So that is a massive risk for this Indiana team going forward. But like, New Orleans is at the bottom right now. They don't have any reason to tank. They do not own that first round pick. It would convey to the Atlanta Hawks, but they just stink. They just stink right now. They're simply a bad basketball team. And I'm excited for the Wizards team because they're playing hard. They're playing good basketball, and like, they're being competitive, which is something we asked for this entire season. But it is interesting because now, after you have this Anthony Davis trade, the Trae Young trade, you start to see like the vision of where the team is trying to go. But from all the reporting that's been done, from everything that we know about this Wizards team, you know that this front office doesn't have any interest in losing that first round pick. They actually would prefer to get the top odds in this draft. You want to have a chance to get your Darren Peterson, your AJ DeBonsta, your Cam Boozer, because you want one of those foundational pieces that you can truly build around. I know everyone's going to say, like, Adam Silver is going to reward us now because we're doing the ethical tank thing, and we just traded for 2 all-star caliber players throughout this trade deadline-ish period. I guess the Trae Young trade was back in January. So they're going to rig it so that we get a pick. I don't believe, like, you can't trust that. I'm not trusting that, certainly. So the only way Washington can guarantee that they definitely have this pick in the first round is by finishing bottom 4. And now you're a game back of being in 4th right now with Brooklyn ahead. It's just interesting to think about. There's obviously time left in this NBA season, still well over 30 games to go. But it is interesting just considering how many teams are really trying to race to the bottom right now. It makes it kind of a sweat, if I'm going to be honest with you right here. And I'm trying to pull up the strength of schedule data. I think Sleeper Wizards did a nice job, actually, of indicating that the Wizards had the, I believe, 9th hardest schedule for the rest of the way in the NBA. And a lot of the teams that are tanking right now were not around them. So maybe that's going to benefit Washington here. But you just took down the number 1 seed in the Eastern Conference. So it's going to be insanely interesting to see how this shapes up. I know the NBA is not going to be happy about it because there's going to be some really ugly basketball that gets played down the stretch here. And I know they keep on saying they're going to maybe change up the lottery formats, do whatever to prevent this, but I just don't understand how this is going to shape up because this happens every single year. This is never going to change. So the bottom line, it's going to be a sweat. And I'm kind of all here for it. All right, just like every single Locked On Wizards postgame show, I am going to read some of these comments right here. I know this is Abdullah's favorite segment to go through right here, but I'm going to pick some of the best ones right here. Let's go find some here that we got about Will Riley because we got to give him credit tonight. Let's see what we got right here. Riley is smooth at times, good for them. Yeah, he is silky, silky smooth with the basketball in his hands. That was honestly super impressive. There's one thing I could take away that gets me really excited about the win because, like, at the end of the day, I think a lot of people are upset they ended up winning the game. I can move past it. I can get over it. I love to see the way Will Riley has improved with the basketball in his hands. And even for a guy at his frame right now, which still needs to fill out, I've been very, very impressed. We got one right here. That was the goofiest win I've ever seen. I agree with you. It was like somehow, some way, the Wizards are really going to win this basketball game. Here's a good one here from Doc Miyagi. Good win. Plenty of time to tank. This felt like a statement win low-key. Somebody else actually texted me that. So I think there are some Wizards fans out there that would agree with that sentiment that you're trying to put the league on notice by not having anybody out there. You're running your bench for the most of this game, and you get the win over the 1 seed in the Eastern Conference. And I think given the discourse that surrounds this team right now because of the trade to get Trae Young a month ago, now you get Anthony Davis into the fold. Like, next year, there can be realistic expectations. And Greg Finberg who we had on the podcast today from Bullets Forever, was saying, like, if you don't make the playoffs, like, that's kind of where you start right there. If you get to the play-in/playoffs, that's kind of where you start in terms of expectations, with the caveat being health, of course, because that's always a big thing. The bench had 69 points in the game. A shout out to Eric Wilhelm for getting us that. Let's see what else we can find right here, because I think there's going to be some comments about the... Yeah, okay. The Wizards are going to have to play the stinky Dallas players to tank. Otherwise, these players are going to win too many games. It's an interesting dilemma. Like, I'm not sure if the Wizards are necessarily that good enough with its bench players where they're going to sack themselves. Like, tonight might end up being an outlier in the grand scheme of things, because this is the 1 seed in the East, but the Wizards played the 2 seed in the East the other night and were down by 40 at one point. They weren't even ever close to winning in that game, but they came out with a really aggressive mentality early on in this game. I was impressed with the motor that we saw from Alex Sarr early on. Justin Champagnie lit the world on fire in the first quarter. These dudes want to play, they want to win, and they wanted to get the taste out of their mouth from getting blown out at home. It's kind of like ridiculous that you can see how this team fluctuates, and I guess that's what happens with a young team. Some nights you're going to be like, wow, man, like, we really got some pieces here that look great, and then you're going to have nights like against New York where you go, my God, like, maybe we're farther away than we think because we can't guard up on anybody. The Wizards did a decent job tonight defensively, and a big reason why, obviously, is because Detroit was inept shooting the basketball from the outside. 9 of 33, 27% from the field. Man, like, I like to get excited about wins in defensive performances, but when you're getting, like, in a sweat type situation like that, it is very interesting that, like, we get to this stage. But I'm gonna look through the positives of this win for sure, and the development, because that's the number one thing that this Wizards team has prioritized throughout the season, is the development of your players, and I've talked about that the entire time, so I'm not gonna, like, go back on that statement here. I'm gonna continue to just look at that. All right, let's see. People have not watched the Wizards the way we all have. They absolutely have pieces that, if moved to secondary roles, can help a winning team for sure. If things go right, we can be incredibly surprising. I think this is a good point when you just start to, like, think about what the lineups could look like next year, especially when you have AD and Trae Young in the fold. When you have some of these guys that are maybe playing in starter roles right now, like Bilal and then Bub Carrington in a lot of instances this year, you could see those guys being really effective for you as bench players. And, like, if you have the weight off of Bilal's shoulders a little bit in terms of what you're asking him to do offensively, maybe that's where you see him really find his role, because we know what he can do defensively for this team. We've seen that through the first 3 years of his career. So if you're Washington, you want to continue building upon that, and he's going to be a guy that's extension eligible going forward. So, you know, I think Washington does extend Coulibaly on a cheap contract, the way that was very similar with Deni Avdija before he eventually broke out. Maybe you see something similar with a guy like Bilal Coulibaly, but, you know, we haven't seen quite the offensive flash with a guy. Like, he's definitely not the offensive player that Deni was back then, or Deni especially is right now. It's wild, though, that we're getting to the point where you're finally going to have to make a big decision on a player from this front office, because what we've seen with Will Dawkins and Michael Winger is they've managed their assets really well. They've been effective at developing players, and this is going to be like their first big test. And then you're also going to have the test this summer in terms of what happens with some of your other players right here. Do you give an extension to Trae Young? Do you give an extension to Anthony Davis? Because we know Rich Paul has been begging for him to get an extension with wherever he goes. I don't think AD is going to be deserving of getting that extension right now. That doesn't seem like something that would make the most sense for your organization going forward. That would probably put you in a spot where you'd get back into salary cap hell. But it's going to be really fascinating to see how things shape up. All right, everybody, that'll do it for this bonus content for you here on the Locked On Wizards post-game show. Will Riley, a really encouraging performance. That is the number one takeaway for you tonight. And, hey, everybody, I know, like, we're in a race to the bottom, but this is a real race for real. There's a lot of heads that have some stick in the fight here, if you get what I'm saying. It's not going to be as easy as people imagined early in the season, but we'll just see how things shape up. All right, day off tomorrow, but Ben Standig will join the program. That episode will be out at around noon Eastern time. AB will be back with me for that. We'll talk more about the Anthony Davis trade and some other aspects here for our Washington Wizards as we go forward. 126 to 117. The Wizards take it over the top seed in the Eastern Conference, Detroit Pistons. I'm your host, Ben Strober. Have a good night, everybody.